whether it's the Lutherans, the Presbyterians, the Assemblies of God, every movement that thinks they've arrived apostatizes. It's only those that feel that there's still more to be acquired before they come into their fullness, or it's because of the shortness of time. In the early church, it was a belief of the shortness of time that kept the church in existence as long as it was in existence. The last chapter of John, the Lord made this statement to the Apostle John here in the last chapter of John, and it's recorded by John some around AD 90, some 50, 60 years after Christ's first advent. And the Lord made this statement to let's see here. It was Peter that the Lord was speaking to here when he asked him to feed his sheep, feed his lambs, feed his sheep, and told him that when he was young, in verse 18, he would gird himself and walk whither he would, but when he would be old, he would stretch forth his hands, and another would gird him and carry him whither he wouldest not. This spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify God. And when he had spoken thus, he saith unto him, Follow me. Then Peter, turning about, seeing John, that disciple whom Jesus loved, following, which also leaned on his breast at supper, said, Lord, which is he that betrayeth thee? That was John that made that statement, said, Lord, which is he that betrayeth thee? Peter, seeing him, saith to Jesus, Lord, what shall this man do? And the Lord said unto him, If I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? Follow me. In other words, the Lord was telling Peter that he wasn't to get too involved in another man's ministry. The Lord was telling Peter that as Peter had a contact with the Lord, John would have his own contact with the Lord also. While these men would work in the same body and in the same fellowship, yet they were not to be subjected to peer pressure to where Jesus Christ could not be their head. Now this is something that's very hard to accomplish, because Jesus looked at the Pharisees, and you can almost look at any religious denomination, organized or unorganized, any fellowship on the face of the earth, and Jesus looked at those Pharisees and he said, How can you believe which receive honor one of another, and seek not that honor which cometh from God only? See, and we as human beings, we're more prone to conduct ourselves in such a way that our peers will appreciate us. They will recognize us. That is more the order of the day than pleasing Christ. To please Christ is a very unusual challenge. Jesus Christ pleased his Father. And Jesus said, How can you believe which receive honor one of another, and seek not that only which cometh from God only? To receive the honor that cometh from God only, you may have to believe what the majority of your peers do not believe. This may cause you to be ostracized by your peers, while it causes you to be recognized by Christ. This is what Paul meant when he said, Let us go unto him without the camp, bearing his reproach. In the finality of it all, the only men that can properly represent Christ are those men that's been called of God. You have not chosen me, Jesus said, but I've chosen you and called you and ordained you, that you should go forth and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain. He said, I pray not for the world, I pray for them that thou hast given me, because it's men like me that need prayer. It was men like Paul that needed prayer. It was men like the apostles that needed prayer. It was men like John that needed prayer when he was being challenged by Diotrephes. It was men like Paul that needed prayer when he was being challenged by Hymenaeus and Philetus. See, these individuals that are more concerned about what the will of God is. Peter knew what he was up against when he followed these two men that knocked on the door of the house there at Joppa by the seashore, and he'd had that vision, and he followed these two servants of Cornelius to Cornelius' home and walked inside this Gentile home. He knew what his peers would have to say about